Ever since half of their scene ran off to suckle at the Riot Games teat, things have looked pretty grim for North America in CSGO. Outside of Team Liquid, the scene has lacked players and teams who could compete amongst the elite in the world. Then, Extra Salt emerged. OC is the player who grabbed the headlines, but FaNg is the one I've had my eye on. FaNg has been quietly putting together an impressive resume of performances against teams from every tier and every region, whilst playing a really satisfying and selfless style of Counter-Strike. If Extra Salt make that leap to the next level and become a consistent elite team, it's going to be thanks in large part to their young rifler. I'm T, he is FaNg, and this is Prospects. FaNg is one of the most soothing and satisfying players to watch play CSGO. His crosshair placement is amongst the best I've had the pleasure of watching, and it moves so smoothly from corner to corner, from pre-aim to pre-aim, always at head level. This is, of course, reflected in FaNg's headshot percentage, which currently sits at an impressive 59.8%. FaNg's utility usage is also amongst his strongest skills, using his nades to keep teammates alive and allow them to have impact. In the clutch, FaNg is also quite impactful. He has won 9 1v2s in the past 3 months, a testament to his ability to make the right decision and to remain composed in high pressure situations. This composure has also manifested in Extra Salt's biggest series, where FaNg has been a standout performer. He was one of only 2 Extra Salt players to not completely collapse against Astralis and was their best player by far in their series against Team Liquid. Across the demos I've watched, FaNg has played essentially every role, even lurking on one map for a while. He has been both a hard entry and a trader on the front line, both in terms of in executes and in map control maneuvers. It's not exactly his bread and butter, but there are certain aggressions, certain things that he likes to do that does a lot and does very well. For example, on Vertigo, his favoured aggression is a part of the ramp control, taking control of the yellow scaffolding area and then being flashed in for fights either at the top of the ramp, onto the players on site, or into short. FaNg is incredibly effective from this area, constantly finding openings or trades, and really opening up the A-bomb site for his team. When they played Astralis, they had taken notice of it and were able to deny it for a fair amount of the game using utility. They then also tried to deny it with Glaive facing, but that didn't go very well for them because FaNg, well, he's going to win that fight every time. On Dust 2, when FaNg isn't lurking in upper and lower tunnels or holding for mid aggressions, he often entries very hard out of long or short. And I mean really, he goes head first straight through smokes, often dying, but creating a lot of space for his team. It's not just as a part of map control that he kind of takes these aggressive fights on Dust 2, he can also find impact whilst being a part of the entry unit on a short execute like this one, where he finds the first kill, falls back, and then is able to catch out those rotators anyway, which is something he would have done if he wasn't part of the entry unit, but here he's able to do both because when you're this good, why not? Overpass is one of FaNg's least aggressive maps, and that's pretty understandable considering how difficult it is to take those early fast fights on the T side like you would on Dust 2, Inferno, all these other maps. He still does what needs to be done though, here trading OC's death for 2 frags, making sure that death wasn't in vain whatsoever. Inferno is a map where FaNg plays a lot with JT, the two of them taking fights in Banana and also like to wrap around long onto the A-bomb site. FaNg plays off the shoulder of JT in most of these scenarios, finding kills when JT takes the initial aggro. Now, at other times when he's not taking early fights, when he's not a part of an execute, he's throwing utility and holding for pushes, really playing almost a supportive sort of role and then transitioning into like a closer. The holding for a flank is quite noticeable on Vertigo, where a flank from the CT's quick onto the ramp is quite an issue that many teams have to deal with. So you see it on Pistol, you see it on certain anti-force buy rounds where he will throw his nades, immediately turn around and just go where are they? Overpass is of course not a very aggressive map for FaNg, as I said, but here's where you see him lurk. We saw this early against Oplano, where he pushed up long, managed to clear out the A bomb site, called for the rotate, and was holding in deep in bank. And it's a great position to find yourself in, great for the info, great to catch out the CTs. But if there's one thing Oplano can do, it's shoot head, and here TRK just absolutely obliterated him. Nothing you can do there, that's just unfortunate. On round 15, FaNg is asked to close out the round. It's a 2v2, then it immediately becomes a 1v2 as he begins to save it. He hits the shot on the man peeking over the smoke, transfers his spray onto the diffuser, and wins it. When we move over to the CT side, I get very excited because finally I'm watching a player for prospects who doesn't just play like a hard anchor role. You know, a lot of these guys are young prodigies or inexperienced players who get assigned simpler roles, like they play with their IGL, they're told to sit in a position, and then when they're told to peek, they hit the headshots. FaNg isn't like that. He's got the sense for the game of a player who's far more experienced than he is. I'm going to start with the less flashy part of his CT play, which is getting information. A lot of emphasis has to be put on this because if you're going to make rotations, you're going to make decisions, you need to know why you're doing them. You can't just guess. So of course you've got to gather info. On Inferno, FaNg has two primary ways of getting that information. The first one is playing really close to mid, in boiler or around just the entrance to mid. Here he can hear pins being pulled, steps, any little mistake that would give away information from the T side. The second way is like a extended jiggle peek, where a flashbang is thrown into mid. FaNg quickly peeks it, make sure that there's no one there, like he can get a brief glimpse into second mid as well, get some idea of who's there, and then make a decision off that. The A ramp on Vertigo is rife with opportunities, so FaNg tries to make the most of them. He plays around the smoke sometimes if there's a bunch of them scattered around the ramp itself, or he kind of does the same play that he does on T side. He pushes short, gets flashed so he can swing out and look what's down ramp. He didn't get many fights in the examples I watched, but he got a lot of crucial information, which is vital to any CT side struggling to make it through Vertigo. Overpass is the map where FaNg pulls out all the stops trying to pick up info. He's one of the A players, so he has to go and find it. He plays for info from party, you know, short pushes, just peeking, retreating. If that short peek presents nothing, he'll change it up and push to playground. Now this gives him really early info if there's a rotate to A through spawn, and it also gives him a chance to catch T's out. Finally, from the relative safety of sight, he jump spots long, he jump spots toilets, but it doesn't always go so well. Now let's move on to the way he rotates around the map. Of course, FaNg can only receive so much credit for the rotates, as he's heavily reliant on info from his teammates, especially good info from his teammates, and maybe some calls from his in-game leader in terms of stacks or what he thinks the opponents are pulling out. Round 7 on Inferno was a great example of good coordinated CT play. FaNg is flashed into mid for info, as he does all the time, sees nothing, and makes the call to go over to B, because there's been some noise at the top of Banana. He's going to try and hold that off. When the B commit doesn't come through, he comes back to CT and starts holding Arch. Now he doesn't push it, he just holds it for a while. The two A players are playing on the short side, but when OC rotates over to try and take a look at long, he gets smoked off. So FaNg calls for a flash, gets a flash, peeks in, finds two who are completely blind, and that's a pair of free kills. An important part of FaNg's role as a rotator is to provide support to the players who are anchoring bomb sites, or just playing from in and around them. Most commonly, this is done with good utility. On this round, FaNg receives a boost up short, and he plays quite aggressively, holding short and lower tunnels. Quite an exposed and committed position, but one he backs himself to win the fight in. The T's end up pushing long, and challenge OC, who's sat on the bomb site. So FaNg comes back from short, starts throwing flashbangs behind OC to try and help him out, try and stop him getting overwhelmed. OC still dies, but it was a valiant attempt from FaNg, and it's exactly the sort of thing he does map in, map out, to try and get the most out of his teammates. FaNg is not very flashy, but that's part of what makes him such a good player. He plays his role properly and cleanly without any muss and fuss. His crosshair placement and decision making are gorgeous and intelligent respectively, a combination of skills that are valuable to any team at any level. As if that wasn't enough, he does have that brilliant aim, he's able to snap to heads when he has to. Given that he has these skills, it's really no surprise then that he performed the way he did against the Astralis, against the Liquids of the world, where he didn't look out of place at all. Any team would be lucky to have a player like FaNg who can slip into a number of different roles and positions almost seamlessly. My vision for FaNg is that he would fit nicely onto any team that comes out on top after LAN comes out and we finally have an NA contender, I guess. Be that Extra Salt, be that Team Liquid, or maybe whoever else ends up saving NA. If you like the video, please leave a like, leave a comment telling me your thoughts on FaNg and, you know, what his future holds. Subscribe if you want to see more, and yeah, that's all for this one. Goodbye.